Hey, what's up? It's Matt in Japan. Welcome back to my channel. And I finally bit the bullet on these Wild King figures. I told myself, Matt, you don't need these. I'm not going to get into this line. I'm not going to review them. I'm not going to buy them. And what do? I go out and spend about 5,000 yen and actually get a free gift with purchase. So I will show that in a second. But yeah, let's get into the Wild King package details. Okay, before we get into the package details, I do want to show you the free gift that I got if you spend 5,000 yen or more. And this is the Energy, it says in Japanese, Energy Weapon Glass. I'm not sure what that means. But this is basically what we saw with the, I think it was War for Cybertron Grimlock. So yeah, it's a repurposed War for Cybertron Grimlock weapons. You get the shield and the sword there. This is the neon green version. There are other colors. I think there's like a red and a blue and one more color maybe. I did ask the lady at the counter. I said, do you have any other colors? She said, no, this is all we have. So I got it. I mean, it was a free gift with purchase. I'm not going to complain about it. But I think it's very interesting how they repurpose these weapons for this line. It doesn't really fit in my opinion, but hey, a free gift is a free gift. So anyways, let's take a look at the package details. All right, let's take a look at Energy Beast Leafback's packaging. Basically what the Energy Beasts are they're smaller figures that form the limbs, like arms and legs, for the bigger figures like Optimus and Megatron. And like I said, I picked this guy out of all of them. I think there's 4 that were released, 2 for Megatron, 2 for Optimus Prime. But I think this guy looks the best. So anyways, you have Takara Tomy logo, upper right, ages 3 and up. Transformer Wild King, you have a picture of Leafback in his robot mode. Then it says transform into his Triceratops mode. Energy Beast Leafback. And then it says, you can power up your bigger figures. Again, like I said, you can use them for limbs. And then kind of arm up with the heads and the tails and things like that. Other members sold separately. On the top, you have much of the same. Transformer Wild King, Leafback. On the bottom, product info. On the side, you have another picture of Leafback there. Transformer Wild King. And then on the side, it does show you what is included in the package. Now, there is a QR code here that will bring you to Takara Tomy's website. There are 5 episodes of the animation up already on YouTube. Basically, what you do get is the figure. You get the glass energy. And then you have the Triceratops head and tail, and you have the instruction booklet. Again, Transformer Wild King. On the back is you have the Triceratops. It says Triceratops to robot and back, and then it has a little bit of a backstory there. And you have both robot mode and dino mode there. That's about it for Leafback's packaging. Let's pause right there and get into Megatrons. So the bigger scale figures are called Energy Masters. Right now we only have Prime and Megatron. I'm not sure if they're going to release other Energy Masters, but for right now you have the bigger scale figures that combine with the smaller figures. So anyways, let's take a look at Megatron's packaging. Same thing, Takara Tomy, Wild King, Transformer. You have a toy version. Picture of Megatron there transforms into a very sort of short and stubby tank there. Energy Master Megatron. Again, same picture. Power up your Energy Masters with the Energy Beasts. On the side, you see Megatron there, and I do like how this flips down and you do have the little ports for the energy glasses. On the top, you have a close-up picture of Megatron. And on the bottom, you have your product info. On the side, again, you have that same QR code. Check it out. And then you do have Megatron, and you have the headgear parts and the fusion cannon right there. So looking very cool. And I do really love the detail on this guy. Again, he looks way better than Prime does. And then on the back, same sort of thing. From tank to robot, he transforms back and forth. And then you have basically the same sort of picture. You do have a little bit of a story. Anyways, that is the package for Megatron. Let's get these guys open and see what they're all about. Okay, here we have Leafback out of the packaging. Before we get into his details, let's take a look at his accessories. He does come with 3 accessories, one of them being his glass energy, which is this really nice metallic green piece that fits on his chest. Got some nice molded detail there. You can see it's just done in that sort of army green plastic, but has that nice metallic finish on it. And this just plugs in. There's the 2 ports right here that just plugs in on his chest like so. It plugs in. You kind of put it at an angle, I guess, like that. So that is the first accessory there. The second is his Triceratops head, done in that same sort of army green. You get some red paint for the eyes and yellow for the horn there. You get some black plastic for the bigger horns and some yellow paint there. And some nice molded detail. Looks very cool. Nice little dino head there. And then on the back here, there's a port here. There's a single port to put on his shoulder, and then you can switch it to the double port for the combined mode. So that's very cool, very clever here. So you're going to switch it to the solo peg, and then that'll fit on his left shoulder there. It just plugs in like that. So you get the dino head hanging off his left shoulder there. And then the other part is his tail. Again, done that sort of lighter green color. Looks like some nice detail on there. You got a port there, and then again, you have that same sort of thing. We have the solo peg, and then you have the combiner peg there. So you want to just change it to the solo peg, and again, this part goes on his right arm. And there you have Leafback all powered up with his accessories. Let's pause there and take a look at Leafback's details. Okay, stripping Leafback of all his accessories so we can just get a closer look at this guy. Let's take a look at the head sculpt now. The head sculpt on these little energy beasts are very, very cool. It's done in green. You get a red for the eyes. You get some yellow paint for the horns. But the sculpt detail is actually very nice. And all over, you have a mix of sort of lighter green, that sort of army green. But he has this yellow paint all over the place, which really does a good job of breaking up all that green there. You do have the lighter green there. You get some black paint for the wrists. You do see the dino toes there. You do have some detail on the chest there. And there's just 5mm ports all over this guy. There's 2 for the chest on either side of the shoulders, 1 on the side of the arms there. And then you do have either side on the legs as well. And then you have black plastic and the green and yellow dino feet there. Or his robot feet. This would be his dino feet, I guess, hiding out in the back. And that's how he looks from the back. Again, you have ports all over the place. So this guy, you know, the gimmick on these figures is actually pretty cool. And there's a ton of playability with these figures. So that is the sort of stripped down version of Leafback. But of course, he does look the best when he's all armored up with his accessories. I really digging that sort of emerald green, sort of metallic finish on there. And putting his Triceratops head and his tail there. And that does complete Leafback's look. So yeah, not a bad little figure. Now for comparison here, just to get an idea of how big this guy is, this is the animated Bumblebee from Legacy United. So this guy is actually a very small deluxe. So you can see that Leafback is actually a little bit bigger than Bumblebee. So just gives you an idea of the scale of these figures. So let's take a quick look at Leafback's articulation. It's not the most articulated figure in the world. A lot of it's due to the transformation, so you do have some articulation there. There's absolutely nothing at the head. It's very static, and all these energy beasts do share the same core sort of body. They're just done in different colors and different molded details. So anyways, his arms do have some shoulder articulation right there. They can go all the way around like that. There is a bicep or under, elbow swivel there, and there is a 90-degree at the elbow. There's absolutely nothing at the hands. Getting his arms out of the way, he does have a waist rotation, which is very tight. All the joints on this guy are very tight. He can go out about like that far, full splits. He can kick back that far. He can kick forward all the way up. Some nice high Chuck Norris high kicks there. He does have a sort of 90-degree, a little bit more deep knee bend there, again, because of transformation. There's another joint right here because of transformation, and then you do have some toe articulation if you want to call it that. But like I said, most of the articulation on this guy is because of the transformation. So he's not the most, posable dude, but I will let that slide. He's cool nonetheless. So let's get Leafback transformed into his Triceratops mode. So the transformation is actually very simple, but it's also pretty fun. First thing you want to do is take the head and just fold this back here. There's a hollow cavity in there, and you're just going to tuck the head in. And you can see why there's no head articulation, because it's just on a hinge right there. I'm sure they could have put something in there to make his head swivel, but you're not going to get a lot of articulation out of that. So you just want to put his head back in like that. Next thing you want to do is take his arms and just turn them back like so. And then you will see a tab and slot connection here. So you want to fold in his arms up here, and then that will tab in like so. And then at this point, you can just kind of turn his toes so the dino feet are facing forward. Next thing you want to do is take his hips. There's a tab and slot there, and there's a tab and slot there. So basically, you want to take both of those and just kind of plug them in, making sure they're both plugged in. And then at this point, you want to rotate the waist to 180. And then you're going to fold down the feet like that, and then you're going to take these toes and just put them down, and then they will kind of fold up like that, and then they'll flip his dino feet out like that. Again, on this side, flip the toes down and then fold up the feet, and they'll sort of tuck in and expose the dino legs there. And that sort of is the core part of the beast body, like that. And then basically now you're just gonna take your other parts here and add them. So you did see the port there. You have the single port for the robot mode. So you're gonna change that to the double port there. And you will notice that one is short and one is long. I'm gonna plug the dino head in there. And then same thing for the tail. You do see the double port back here. So you're gonna take the tail and change it to the double port. And again, that will just plug in his dino butt right there. And you can leave it straight, or you can kind of articulate it down a little bit. I think the instructions do said to leave it straight. And then last but not least, you just take the glass energy and you can just, you can basically put it on any way you want. I think the instructions show, actually I think it's in this port, it shows here, and then just sort of put it at a sort of angle right there. So yeah, that is Leafback in his Triceratops mode. So pretty cool. It's a very fun transformation, very easy. There is some nice molded detail here. I really like the yellow and green, has a nice contrast there. And these do articulate. The horns can go up and down, and the head can move a little bit like that. And like I said, the tail can go down like that. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of articulation in Dino mode. There's a little bit, there's like a knee joint there, and there is a knee joint, more of a transformation joint there. But yeah, he does a little bit of articulation in his Dino mode. So very, very cute. I do like this little Dino mode for Leafback. I will show the limb mode for Leafback when we get into Megatron's details. So let's bring out Energy Master Megatron. Before we take a look at Wild King Megatron's robot mode details, let's take a quick look at the accessories he comes with. He does come with one sort of headgear here, which is done in black plastic with some nice red paint on it, and it does have some nice detail actually. There are two little posts right here that do fit on the back of his head. So if you look on the back of his head, there are two slots right there. And basically for combined mode or super mode, it'll just kind of peg in on the back. So it gives him sort of a different look there. So that's kind of cool. And then one more accessory is obviously his fusion cannon done in a black plastic. And it does have some very nice detail on it. It has two pegs on either side, and then it has one peg on either side here. And it's not much, there's no paint at all. It's just done in black plastic, but it's not bad. So basically what you want to do is take the side with just the one peg, and then there is a peg on his arm right here, and you can just plug it in. Now it does sit a little bit lower on his arm there, but I don't think it looks that bad. So pretty cool. I mean, you can't have a Megatron without a fusion cannon. So anyways, taking this off and getting up close on Megatron's head there. Now, for a kid's toy line, that head sculpt is spot on. I mean, it's a beautiful G1 inspired head sculpt. You get the red eyes, the silver paint for the face. A very, very nice head sculpt indeed. You got some nice sort of lines here. Almost looks like the helmet is cracked or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty nice for this kid's toy. And then you're going down, you do have some nice paint here. It's Takara release, so of course you're gonna have some nice paint. You get some silver on the top and bottom of the chest. You get the Decepticon logo there. You have some nice black paint here. You got a little bit of red trim there. And going down, you do see some sculpted detail. You see some nice sort of gunmetal silver paint there. And then you do have some paint on the back of his hands there. And going down, you do see some nice detail through the abdomen and on the hips and the crotch there. Again, you get some black paint there. And going down, you have some black paint. And again, that sort of gunmetal gray paint and more black on the bottom. But yeah, some nice detail on the legs as well. So yeah, not bad at all. He does have some nice chunky feet there. You do see the tank treads on the side. That's how he looks from the back. Well, he does have some hollow bits on the arms, but you do see that he's not that bad. He doesn't have any backpack. He's pretty flat from the back. So anyway, just a quick comparison here, bringing in Siege Astro Train, just to give you an idea of how big this Wild King Megatron is. So there's a quick comparison. Articulation for Wild King Megatron is as follows. Let's start at the head there. The head can go up and down like that, nothing side to side. It is on a ball joint, so you can spin it 360. His shoulders can go out like that on a hinge. They can go all the way around like this. And there is an upper bicep swivel, but just be careful. When you articulate this figure, sometimes this does pop off, but basically it's just the nature of the toy. He does have a 90 degree at the elbow. There is some wrist rotation, but basically that is for transformation. And then he does have sort of, not so much a waist, but an upper torso swivel. So that's nice, and it's very, very tight. So getting his arms out of the way, he can do the full splits like that. And he can kick back about that far. He can kick forward almost, really high high kicks here. He does have a 90-degree at the knee. And then again, like I said, these do tend to come off when you're articulating it. There is swivel at the knee like that. And then at the feet, there's nothing. The feet are just sort of static, one piece. So for a bigger, sort of kid's toy like this, not a bad amount of articulation. Okay, let's get Wild King Megatron transformed into his tank mode. First thing you want to do is take his arms, or his wrists rather, and just turn these around 180 like so. Other side as well. Turn those around. And then you're going to take his arms here and just turn these around like that. So you have the double pegs facing this way. Again, turn those around like so. And then what you're going to do is take this part here, and then this just flips up and his head just sort of tucks in. You want to take this piece right here and just fold this up, and then his head will sort of go down into that cavity there. And then next thing you want to do is take your fusion cannon and then plug it in right here. So we'll plug that in, and then what you're going to do is there's a tab slot connection here, there's a tab, and then on the side here there's a slot right there, a very big slot there. So basically you want to take his arm and then fold that over and tab that in there, and then take this arm again and fold that in and tab it in. But before you tab it in, you want to make sure this is connected, the fusion cannon are connected between his arms, and then you can go ahead and fold that part in. So you should have something that looks like this. Next thing you want to do is just take his feet, his legs, and just extend them like this. And then you're going to take them and put them out like that. And then you're going to kind of flip him up like this, so the fusion cannon of the tank barrel is on the bottom there. And you're going to take these parts, open them up here. There is a little bit of a slit right there, so you can kind of get your fingernail in there and open these parts up on either side. Like that. Okay, then what you're going to do is take these parts and just put these up like that, and put these up like that. Next thing you want to do is use this knee joint here to fold these parts over like that. Take the knee joint and fold them over like that. So you have something that looks like this. And one more time, you're going to rotate these up here like this part. And so the tank treads are now facing on the side here, and just making sure that knee bend is straight. And then again, taking that part and rotating it up like that. And then you're going to take out the pieces inside here, which will form the back end of the tank treads. And then you're going to close that part up. Same thing on this side. Take this part here, make the tank treads, close that up. And at this point, you're going to look back here. There are two slots right here, and these two little pegs right there, and they're going to fold up like this, and these pegs here will slot into these slots right here. So you're just going to take that, and then you're going to make sure those are pinned together like that. Same thing on this side, just slide those up, making sure those pegs and slots line up. And voila, there you have Wild King Megatron in his tank mode. Let's look at his tank mode details. Okay, here we have Wild King Megatron all transformed into his very stubby, short tank mode. So let's take a quick look at the details here. You do see the horn part that was used in robot mode does fit underneath the barrel here, so you can add on that part. You do see some silver paint that were on the back of the fist there. You do see some sort of gunmetal gray paint on the top there, and a little bit on the back. You do see some nice detail on the tank treads there, a little bit of molded detail there as well. And on the back, you see all the 5mm ports, basically used for combined mode. And that's about it. There are some pegs on the side here and on the top. So I guess if you wanted to, you could take Leafback here, and he does have some ports on the bottom. So if you want to, have like Leafback, riding Megatron, you could do that. So there's a lot of playability in both modes. There are no wheels on this guy, so unfortunately he does not roll. So he's one of those figures you just kind of have to push along. Megatron transform back into his robot mode, and we'll soup him up with Leafback in the limb mode. Probably my favorite part of this robot mode is the chest piece. As you can see, it is on a hinge right here, and it does open up to reveal a beautifully sculpted chest piece here. You get some nice purple plastic. The chain detail is really cool. You get some red paint all around there as well. You get some blue for the middle. And this is basically for the leaf glasses. Obviously, if you have 4 of them, you can plug all 4 in. But yeah, just the detail under there, it's just like a nice little hidden gem hiding under there. So anyways, that's very, very cool. Okay, let's fit Wild King Megatron for his super mode / combined limb mode. First of all, let's take all the components we have and put them back. Fusion cannon and plug that in. And then the instructions say take the Leafback's tail, and actually you're gonna change it to the 2-prong part. Of course, we can gear him up with his headgear there. We're gonna take the arm off there. And then we have Leafback basically in his beast mode, just transformed a little bit so the feet are kind of tucked in here. And then what's gonna happen is, again, you have the 2 slots there that are just gonna plug right into the arm like that. And you do see a sort of faux fist right here. And there is a port there for the weapon if you want. And if you don't like the feet sticking out, the instructions say the feet kind of stick out. If you don't like that look, which I kind of don't, it's easily fixed. You can just kind of fold the feet down like that. And you are left with this piece here, which, there's no real place to put it. What I like to do is kind of put it on his shoulder and kind of use it as like a missile launcher or something like that. So anyway, so that is how the limb looks. And again, you can take, you can put this arm on this side or vice versa. I'll show you the legs in a second, or you can take this off, take the tail off and use that as a weapon as well, changing it back to the one-sided peg there. And like I said, there is a sort of faux little fist there, so he can hold the weapon like that. So yeah, very cool. The only thing is there's no, if you try to articulate the arm, this will fall off. It's a pretty tight connection, so it's not bad. It does rotate a little bit, so there's not a whole lot of articulation in the combined mode. But yeah, that is how Wild King Megatron looks in his combined mode. Okay, for the combined leg mode, I only have one of the energy beasts, so it's not going to be ideal. Obviously you should have 2 or more to combine the legs. But the first thing you want to do is just take the leg and just break it off like that. And then what you want to do is take the back here, open this up, and then flip out this part here, and then close it back up. And this will form the foot, basically. And then you do have the 2 pegs there. And I've sort of altered the Energy Beast Leafback a little bit. And then basically, this guy is just going to clip on like so. So clip on that part. And then again, you have the tab slot connection for his leg. And then you're just going to clip that on like that. There is one of the leg modes for Megatron. Obviously, if you had all 4, you could, soup him up even more. But that's how the leg mode looks. Let me get this guy transformed back and we'll finish up the review. So when this toy line was first released at the end of April, I definitely wrote it off at first. I took a look at it and was like, it looks cheap and it looks kind of dumb. And I mean, obviously it's aimed at kids. But, now that I have it in hand and I've been playing with it, it's basically like a kids-focused combiner. So I think that's the whole point of this line, is that you can combine the limbs, the legs, arms, custom make it to your liking. And I think that's the fun part. That's definitely the playability and the feature of this line. And I think it works really well. It's definitely grown on me the more I've been, kind of handling this toy. So we always do that in the Transformers community, right? We see something and we quickly write it off because, it doesn't meet our aesthetic needs or whatever. But this figure, I do have to say, it is a lot of fun. Anyways, this is my look at the Wild King Megatron and Leafback. This has been Matt in Japan. Thanks for watching, guys. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for more great content. And please follow me on Instagram. And as always, guys, till all are one, Wild King!